Crofton, can you speak again? Yeah, it's terrible.
Those people?
Oh my
Oh, your
god.
neighbor. Remember you were making fun of your neighbor? Hold on, are we live stream yet?
I'm just pushed it, yes. It's
Okay, yeah,
funny
so
that I'm
Crofton,
like,
remember
don't
how you were
do this
saying
thing. And then you're like, we don't do this. What are you even talking about? And then you begin doing it. You guys are
Okay,
crazy people.
no one listens to this show. Okay, are we ready to start?
Yeah. Okay, I can just push the record button and we're good to go. So.
All right.
Don't screw it up, Crofton.
Don't worry, I got this. Oh, Bo, you can just do that tick.
Oh, wait. I need levels. Fuck. All right, just 1 sec. Mike, say something.
Mike?
I can't hear that, Mike.
We can't hear you, Mike. Where'd his voice
I'm
go?
muted. I muted it.
You son of a bitch. Say something.
Yeah, I'm full of snot. How about that?
Okay.
Not me, it's Ivan's snot.
Done. Crofton, say something.
Mike is full of Ivan snot.
All right, don't respond to that, please. Give me a second.
The purpose of playing, whose end to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature.
Okay, and this is me talking. Hello. All right, let's do this. Ready?
I'm ready, Bo. Hello, and we are live. It is the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. It is the Three Musketeers of Conversation. We're talking about me, Crofton Steers, Aramis, and of course, the D'Artagnan of this group, and that is Michael Hodgins. Welcome, Michael.
Sweet, I get D'Artagnan.
And of course, the Porthos, or what is it, Pathos? Porthos? The rotund
Not
one, Bo
Pathos.
Schwartz.
Hello. It's been a long time since I've read The Three Musketeers, and the only version I really remember is The Man in the Iron Mask with Leonardo DiCaprio. And
Really?
so if that's who you're saying I am, I thank
No,
you.
I'm like in the original 1993 movie. I would be played by Kiefer Sutherland. Mike would be played by Chris O'Donnell, and you would be played by Oliver Platt.
Chris O'Donnell. I
Yeah.
need to Google that guy.
Yeah, what's he done lately? Nothing.
Kiefer
that's
Sutherland.
what- Yeah, I'm Kiefer, except less drunk.
I think
all
I
right.
won.
he looked
Oliver
more like
Platt
Chris
is
than me.
like the coolest out of that bunch. He was in the West.
He is, actually. He's got the most personality.
I left Aramis out. He's Charlie Sheen.
Your fat
Oh, I'll
shaming
be Charlie Sheen.
slam.
Winning!
Your fat shaming slam turned into a great compliment.
It did because you like Oliver Platt?
Also, do
He's
you,
actually good.
you PC bro? Yeah. Anyways, all right. I'm Oliver Platt. That's D'Artagnan or whatever, and that's Chris O'Donnell. And
We're
welcome
the
to
Three Musketeers of Conversation.
Yeah. See how good we are at conversation? I bet you followed that
What?
very easily.
Why are there four Musketeers? It doesn't even make any sense. Why call them the Three
Because the
Musketeers?
story, there had to be an outsider, right?
That's D'Artagnan.
Because they were like an established group, and then you got whatever.
They're like superheroes of that time.
Literature's stupid. Let's move on.
All right, sweet. How are you boys doing?
I'm good. I'm very good, actually. A lot of great stuff happening for me. So, I'm kind of on top of the world.
Well,
I
you
guess
can't just say that.
gotta
and
plug it
then
now,
not say what
actually.
the great
Yeah.
stuff is. You got to tell us what the
All
great
right.
stuff is.
So I've been invited to appear on Current Geek. That's a podcast. I don't know how you can find it except search Current Geek in iTunes and you'll get it there. I'm going to be on there with John Jagger, with the hosts Tom Merritt and Scott Johnson, and we're kind of there to sort of promote the new show that we're doing, John and I, with Scott Core, which is also an amazing thing. I have a third new
Cool.
podcast. So I'm pretty happy about that. Heroesforyou.com is where you can find out all about that Heroes of the Storm podcast I'm going to be a part of. It's big for me. I'm working with Scott, who I'm a big fan of. So working with someone...
He's a big podcasting star.
Yeah, so working with someone you admire is pretty cool event for me. And yeah, so check out Current Geek tomorrow. It's live at Friday at I think 5 Eastern. I have to double check that, but just get it on iTunes and that'll
Cool.
be pretty cool. But
subscribe if you're into that. Subscribe to it. Support Bo, everybody.
yay, and support us.
That's right.
Yeah. Support me. Help me by supporting me. Help you to support me and support the rest of us.
We're supporting everybody.
Did I
But
get
this
all
is-
of that right?
This is cool. Anyway, I congratulations, Bo. I think this is awesome, and it is neat. It's another podcast to add to your ever-growing producer seducer portfolio.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, and I made the theme music for it. So if you like the music I make, check that out. All right.
Well, thanks to music.
So that's my shameless plugging. I'm sure there'll be much more of it in the weeks to come.
Mike, do you want to shamelessly plug something?
Nope, I'm good.
Sounds good.
He retweeted the Good, Bad, or Bullshit account today. You should plug that.
Wow, a retweet.
I also made another tweet about a week ago. Did you guys catch that? You follow my Twitter, right?
I'm sure I caught it a week ago.
I catch
it was
all of
related
your
to
tweets.
our fashion podcast.
I catch that you found your you had a sweater that you found on a bench in high school and you've had it for like 18 years and you saw it reflected on it and tweeted it out.
I was wearing it at work.
Yeah.
When I put the sweater on at work and I looked at it, I was like, I found this thing on a bench 18 years ago in high school, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not fashionable. So it reminded me of our recent episode on fashion.
Might be coming back into style. How long do these things last anyway?
What?
Pieces of clothing. How long do they last?
Well, this one lasts a very long time. I think it's like
forever, don't they?
It has no, they do not last forever. There's a small hole in it, but no one at work seems to notice. I haven't been fired yet.
I have a blanket that's like 90 years old. It's ages. It's been requilted countless times, but you know, it's still that thing with that history.
And look at the pharaohs there; they're still wearing that wrapping.
All right, we have a job that we normally do. We've bantered enough.
Let's roll a topic.
Speaking of rapping, let's wrap our brains around a topic that Mike's gonna get for us from the random topic generator. Make sense, everyone?
I didn't get to promote anything.
Oh, Crofton, do you have something that you'd like to promote?
No.
Okay. He just wanted to be a part of it. I got you. All right, Mike's getting impatient. Let's go.
Let's ready.
If I stopped every time Mike was impatient, I'd never go anywhere.
Ugh.
But
The topic today is charity or charities.
Charities. Okay. Seems like an interesting one because charities. It seems like I'd have to be Donald Trump to have something bad to say about charities. See, the problem with charities is that they're nice to people, and you don't get anywhere in this world being nice to people. You gotta call them losers, and that motivates them to be better. You don't give people things. Yeah.
Well, thank you for channeling Donald Trump. That was
a terrible impression, but in spirit, the words were. I mean, you know.
You're a
Well, it
low
sounded
energy
jerky,
person,
and
Bo. Low energy person.
All right, look at it this way.
I'm the best at the military. But but I do think that it's like when you hear charities, you know, it sounds like you'd be like, oh, okay, good, you know, and you just, that's it, you go on with it. But I think it's one of these things that's more complicated than that. Like some of like the obvious things about charities that are not good is that some people might claim that they're institutions which exist sort of to just support their own existence, and that they eat up much of their funding through administration and paying their own staff, and that the amount of sort of actual aid they do on the ground, depending on the charity, is sort of limited, and things like this. I think it's more complex than it seems, and sometimes some of the way aid is done is just not helpful. I started listening to something the other day on the radio. They were talking about Haiti, and I think actually it was this series that's going on CBC, CBC show Ideas, which I plug occasionally on this show. It's great. It's a great show.
Yeah, there you had something
Anyways,
to
and they're
plug.
studying-
You forgot. We
Well,
gave you a
it's
chance to
another
plug
part,
something
nothing.
earlier, and you forgot to plug your show CBC Ideas.
Well, it's just advertising. I don't work for ideas or anything. They do just good stuff. Anyways, I basically only got the very start of this episode, but they have a series where they're like looking at work being done by PhD students in across the country, and one of
Okay.
them was doing a study about Haiti and charities and the sort of aid movement in Haiti, and how essentially it's kind of just fails. It doesn't actually help, and a lot of Haitians are just like, get out of here already. I'm paraphrasing him. I missed the end of that show, so I might be talking to my ass here. That essentially Haiti, if you look at it, has it's like the poorest country in the Western
Yeah.
Hemisphere, has a lot of problems, and it's like inundated with all these aid groups trying to help, and it doesn't really help. I guess is sort of some of the criticisms are like that these groups, charities, you just give your money, it makes you feel good, and then they go and try to
Well,
do something, and
so
it ultimately doesn't really help that
so
much.
hang on, because like I think what you're talking about is if there's a systemic problem and a charity might be involved in stabilizing or have a certain mission, but beyond that mission, it might continue to enable a certain status quo rather than, a catalyst for change that is required to change things. Like, so you're saying that like not for profits existing for the sake of existing can be problematic. Or wait, we're not sorry, charities, not for profits. We're not talking not for profits,
No,
although
Well, a lot of not-for-profits are
yeah, I
charities.
think that's
and
a
not all of them.
specific designation that maybe we can talk separately about because not all not for
Well, and a
profits
lot
are
of them
charities.
enjoy tax-free status.
Well, see, that's it.
Yeah,
So,
but all I'm trying to
so
say,
okay, go ahead.
all I'm just trying to say is it's not. I think it's not as simple as it seems. That of like, why giving to charity? Of course, that's good. So I'm playing a bit devil's advocate here, uh, but I think that it's not as simple as it just seems on the front. Where give to charity, sure, helps everything, makes the world a better place. End of story. Rate good, move on. I think there's more to it than that.
There definitely is, and I know that people like charities are organizations, and like any organization, there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are efficient ones, there are less efficient ones. Generally, they're guided by good moral principles, although sometimes they're not. Like there's exceptions to everything, right? Um, I know that I work for the government of Canada. Every year the government of Canada runs sort of a charitable giving program for their employees, and it accounts for lots of charities. But they ask certain employees to go and canvass other employees. So I've been asked to go and see my fellow employees and ask them if they want to donate to charity this year, and and it is funny the stuff you'll hear because people say that they like charities in theory, but often as long as they're not the ones giving to them. And when they are asked to give to them, they often have a zillion reasons of why they won't. And a lot of them are similar to ones that Mike has mentioned, playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
Stuff like saying, oh, administrative costs are, through the roof for this one charity that I read about in the news. And even though that this is a different charity or this is whatever, people will find ways that they'll point to other charities that have been unsuccessful. They'll point to like some sort of singular study that is focused on a type of charity that says that they're less efficient than they need to be as reasons for them to not participate in that process. Because it's the easiest thing to do with regards to charities is just not give them any of your money.
I think that sounds like very familiar to me. And what I'm thinking of is what do we even need charities for? And I'm not saying that as a rhetorical question. Like I'm meaning to say, hey, what do we need charities for? It's just why can't everybody, private businesses, public sector, government entities, people, entities, just give money where it's needed, and we can give it wherever we want. What do we need? The concept of charity aside, what do we need an actual charity, like a system for charity for? Like, is it
Well, I think it exists because we live in a world that is far from perfect, and like if I had an issue with charities, it's more that it's like a symptom of the failure of society. That it's like you need to give to charities because we haven't sorted out our problems, and in theory, it's supposed to be well, one of government's role you'd hope to try to help society run more smoothly, but because of the way politics are, that just doesn't happen because you have some people that don't care about others, some people that, whatever interest drives people, that politics, it doesn't, governments don't end up solving all our problems. So you still have homeless people. So there may be charities to help the homeless. You have let's say literacy issues. So there's charities to help with literacy issues, but there's any number of things, but these are all symptoms of kind of where we've failed as a society. And charities, I guess, are the kind of band-aids which aim to fix those things. But I would say that they're just that. They're kind of band-aid solutions. They don't address root problems, in my opinion, and maybe some of them attempt to, but generally that's what they are. Like, there's a problem, it's not being addressed by the state or the well, I think it's the state ultimately that has the resources to probably do it. So you have charity springs up and then they try to address it. I think that's
Right.
why they exist.
Well, yeah, no, and I could see the Band-Aid solution that you're talking about as yes, for certain problems, social problems, homelessness, that sort of thing. That is something that maybe fell through the state's fingertips or the government's fingertips, and charities are picking up the slack. But I would say the time you hear the most about charities are in the context of natural disasters. So when there's like something horrible that happens across the world, a tsunami, an earthquake, a hurricane, whatever, there's often these giant pledge drives, because this is happening outside of the ability of states and governments to normally plan, and it allows like the wealthy to give back to those who are needed, those who need it. So I find like generally it's still a band-aid, in that it would be really great if there's a huge emergency fund for every country that can deal with those particular situations, but it's just not feasible, I don't think.
So, like, have either of you ever directly benefited from a charity that you can think of? Have you ever received anything, and not counting tax credits for donating to a charity, because that's not receiving, but, I think of like UNICEF, right? Like, that money, presumably, UNICEF's a charitable organization, correct? There's a UNICEF
Yeah,
Drive.
UNICEF's a charitable. I think they help sort of children overseas and things like that. I mean, my simple answer to your question is I think to some extent we all benefit from charities indirectly, in the sense that charities that provide those band-aid solutions do help. I think often to a minimal extent, but to make our societies a better place. So if you just think about something, not that it's simple, but a specific example of homeless, and if you have charities which provide food and shelter for homeless people, particularly in the dead of winter, well, that's a specific that makes my life better, because it's like it's something I don't have to see. I don't have to see someone literally starving on the street, and there's a charity which sort of helps address that for me. And I would say indirectly in other senses, a lot of people support charities to fund research into various diseases, and that's another big thing where charities come up, like Cancer Foundation, or there's any number of them. And so any money that goes towards that helps us all in terms of doing that kind of fundamental research that needs to be done to forward treatments for diseases. So I think we all benefit from that, but directly I have not benefited from one. But it's interesting, because coming back to like something like where governments, because we live in a welfare state, right? So I've benefited from employment insurance a couple of times. And if we didn't live in a welfare state, if the state didn't provide that kind of stuff, I would have probably had to go to some form of charity, like a food bank or something like that, when I would have been out of work in the past. So it's just like it's that sliding scale, and in some places that don't have any of those social safety nets, you're much more dependent on charities to help people who are helpless for some period of their lives.
And I think, like, to answer Bo's question, my answer would be the same as Mike's. I've been fortunate in that I haven't been in a situation where I needed to directly go to Charities for assistance. As part of that charitable campaign, I did a tour of the Ottawa Mission, and essentially I got to see sort of like the hands-on of what they do, and where the money goes. And essentially, they provide shelter for homeless people. They provide meals for them, but they also provide, like, courses. A lot of wannabe chefs will work and prepare the food in the kitchen and stuff. It was really a cool experience to see it. And since that experience, I've made a point of giving a fairly sizable charitable donation every year to this campaign, as well as like participating in stuff like the local food bank, and the Alzheimer's Association, and all this sort of thing as well. So I'm on the other end of that spectrum because I've been lucky. But I like to realize that if I was ever if things were not going well for me, and all that my fellow man would be willing to help me out. And I feel that that's what the core value, the core nature of a charity is based on: people helping each other, in some capacity or another. They're trying to do good. And like, you see these infomercials for charities, or to give on TV, where to give to African villages, and they'll build the well, and they'll show all the kids talking about how happy they are that this new water pump or well is in there. And that's like, maybe there's a lot of paperwork, maybe there's a lot of wasted money, maybe there's a lot of stuff in between that positive end. But for the most part, while there are some negatives, like sometimes a charity could go wrong or make an error or whatever, for the most part, I think they're leading to positive outcomes. It's just that sometimes the positive outcome might not match the size of, say, the financial donation that was given. Like, they could always be more efficient, I think.
That's a good. It's true, and it's a good point. I mean, and you have to, if you're going to do something, you have to employ people, and unless it's wholly volunteer run, and I think some of them, they count a large part on volunteers. But there has to be some administration costs. These are big organizations. Here's another. I'm being Mr. Devil's advocate here on this charity thing, but there are a lot of religious charities, and I think sometimes now, and I have a bias here. I'm an atheist person, but that oftentimes there is an ulterior motive to the aid that's provided, and I think Christians in particular have been known for going around the world, and it's funny you mentioned the mission. And the term missionary, it is a Christian thing where they go on a mission somewhere, and it's like, to do, it's always to do good, but I think kind of the little sort of nudge is like, and maybe you can convert them to Christianity while you're at it. And so, like, I think a lot of charities kind of what they and I mean, it's kind of a tricky thing, because I feel like, yeah, sure, if you're feeding people and helping people, that's good. And I'm like, and I would never say like, oh, stop it, but maybe if they're kind of like also just trying to be able to indoctrinate them, and maybe we can bring them into our broader organization of religious affiliation, that's to our interest too. So it's not just these things don't always operate in some of a vacuum of goodwill. I think a lot of religions maybe fool themselves into believing that that's what it is, because they're like, well, we're also offering them salvation in the afterlife. That's the most charitable thing we could ever do. And maybe they believe that, and that's all fine. But I do think that some organizations have ulterior motives like that, where it's like, yeah, we're going to help you, but here's a Bible, maybe
So it's like, you can't just evaluate a charity and say, well, it's a charity, therefore it's therefore it's positive, or therefore it deserves a reputation of being good, even if it has certain things. I think they need to be judged as harshly as anything else, right? That seems to be what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I think that as harshly as anything else, they should be their operations should obviously be scrutinized and regulated to a certain extent. But I don't think that they should be like what Mike's saying about religion. I agree. Like, it's always when people have different values than you, and that they're using charities to impose those values. And Christianity and other religions, one thing I've not ever had a problem with is that sense of giving and watching out for your fellow man, which I feel is a big part of those religions. But they've done obviously heinous things along the way. And I know some religious people that are really, nice and good people. So I think the good that is given, if it does come with that indoctrination, at least in our current form, I don't mind. I don't mind it so much. Like, as long if you're saving a person from starving, but also like telling them about Jesus. I mean, like, if no one else is going to save them from starving, and the alternative is that they die of starvation, I'd rather they learn about Jesus, like, not die.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of it's true.
so that's and it's same with like you see these Christian schools or whatever, and yeah, they learn a bunch of stuff that's probably wrong, but they also learn some stuff that's right, and it probably helps them. It helps them moving forward. I do find though that with charities, it like anything, you hear about these ones. I've heard about ones before. I can't think of a concrete example right now, but that are just like tax shelters or whatever. That often famous people or whatever will start charities in their name, right? And like the Somebody Foundation, the Lance Armstrong Foundation for whatever.
Oh,
And,
calling out Lance Armstrong. Oh
He
wait,
does have a foundation.
the biker or the?
the biker, yeah, the one
Okay.
that got kicked out of his own foundation.
I was thinking of the astronaut. Sorry,
Neil Armstrong.
Neil. Yeah, wrong Armstrong. I thought you were going after Neil Armstrong. I was like,
Dude, I
dude.
wouldn't touch him. He's out of this world. But
Wah, wah.
Well, man, that
but
was.
I just think these people will sit there, and I'm not begrudging Lance Armstrong's reasons. He can cheat all he wants. He can still have a heart of gold when it comes to giving to people. That's his own business. But I do think that some of them are used as tax shelters or are used as some way to score points with the public. They say when you become famous, one of the first rules of being a wealthy celebrity is to like give to charity or do it as publicly as possible so people know what a great person you are.
Like PK Subban.
Recently gave 10 million to a children's hospital in Montreal.
For those that don't know, he's a celebrity hockey player for the Montreal Canadiens.
For
But
sure.
I mean, it's true that stuff works because I saw that headline. I'm like, man. And my first reaction is like, yeah, why don't all celebrities do that? They're freaking millionaires. Like, I mean, it's great. He's setting a good example. Like, when people give a lot of money to charity, it's great. I mean, but it is true that it is tax deductible. Like, if you're a rich person and you want to lower your tax bracket to some degree, because you have so much money, maybe you don't need that much anyways. Yeah, you give a bunch of it away. It is tax deductible, so it might work out in your benefit. You're still doing a good thing, and I wouldn't begrudge those people to be like, oh, they're only doing it for the tax benefits. I'm like,
Wow, we
like,
found a limit on Mike's cynicism. We found the cynicism limit on Mike. It's awesome. What a great day.
I do think though that there are some, like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there are some that are literally set up to be scams or whatever.
Oh, I'm sure that some are outright scams.
You know what happened recently was and this is, I'm not sure related to the charity, but I guess Jared, the Subway guy, had his own, like, the Jared Fogle Foundation or whatever, and he, the president of said foundation, was like in this. For those of you who are just getting their news too late, Jared Fogle was arrested for possession of child pornography, and but well before he was arrested, the president of his foundation was arrested, and he was told, and he said at the time, we have no tolerance for this sort of thing, and he besmirched the name of the foundation, incidentally his name, and then of course it turns out that he was using this guy and using foundation resources or what have you for his own purposes, and now of course he's in trouble in this sort of thing. So, like, I think it's really easy to take charities that will automatically be seen in a good light by the general public and be tempted to use them for other things. It could be taxes, could be whatever.
It's like a lot of things, though, right? Remember my analogy about a hammer? You can use it to build a house or kill your wife.
That's
That's
such a horrible.
but
We had just
you
forgotten.
know, we
I was enjoying having forgotten that.
we the point is that you can't evaluate a hammer. You know, you can't look at it and be like, well, because it can be used for nefarious purposes or for good purposes. You know, like you can't. Like I feel like you can't judge it just because somebody's gonna be a jerk with it, right?
I know, honestly, Bo, I feel a little bit like, because I was trying to be a bit devil's advocate like Mike here. I feel a bit like I'm stretching on this one. Like,
Right.
charities, honestly, are their goals are by and large, not all, but by and large, they're just, and they're trying to make to better the world. And yeah, there's shit that goes wrong
It's
sometimes, but they just generally seem like positive things. So I'm kind of stretching.
it seems like though that you guys have, you know, sort of touched the criticism, both of you, on various fronts, which is just charities, you know, are reflective of a problem in society. If we have to get people to volunteer to do a thing to generally help, like it's an emergency problem, there are children starving somewhere, there are people that are homeless, there's, you know, cancer or disease affecting, there's something that's very urgent that we need to solve that is harming people, and people volunteer their time or their money to get it done because the normal course of society won't do these things. So we set up these things called charities. And I think the problem is that we sit there and go, well, there's a charity for it. That's good. And it's like, no, it's not good. The idea that there's a charity for something means, hey, get your shit together and fix this problem. And I don't think anyone makes that connection, or we're all too indifferent and binge watching Game of Thrones instead of, you know, going out and fixing things in the world. I'm, of course, not referring to myself and my binge watching. That's okay. But everyone else, stop your binge watching and help the world out. There are charities out there that, you know, exist because there are problems. And I think that the problem with charity is like, well, there's a charity for it. So great. You know, like, job's
Yeah.
done. And it's like, no, the
Like-
point is that the charity is that we've identified a problem where we're not getting our shit together. So,
Yeah, it is interesting to look at things in that way. I thought about it after we had done the police episode. This is a little while back, but it occurred to me. I sort of meant to say this in my verdict from that, but it applies to this as well. Of being the very existence of something like the police or charities, the very existence of them just reinforces the fact that we live in a very flawed world. Because if you had a world that didn't require police officers, it'd be great. You know, it wouldn't have people hurting each other.
we'd all be
killing-
very well organized, and yeah, we'd all have
Exactly.
great lives.
And if we had a world that did not require charities, because everyone was like, "Oh, we need to set up a charity," it's like, well, everyone's well fed and pretty well off, and okay, well, there's no reason for a charity. Like they are. They just serve to reinforce, like, yeah, there's a lot of problems in the world, but that's the way the world is, right? You know, you can't just wish it away. I'm going to continue my devil's advocate role here because there's some other things. I agree with everything you say, and I'm a bit stretching here too. But you know, we're having a conversation about it, and so I mean, I've given to Crofton mentioned this government charitable campaign thing, and I've given to that through my workplace many years, though I might not this year in the end. In here, but okay, so and then I have a couple of problems with charities that I've encountered recently, which is I find weird. So I think because they're focused on, I think, first and foremost preserving themselves, and again, that's a bit of a cynical view, and probably acknowledging that they can't do their good work if they don't exist, right? Fair enough. So that what they want is steady income. You know, they don't want. So there's these people on the street who are paid, and they're paid fundraisers, and they're out there, and they stop you, literally harass you. They're all over downtown. They drive me bananas because they come up to you every day and are like, "Oh, hey, do you got a moment to chat?" And they're always some like perky kind of hippie 20-year-old, and you're like, "Get out of my face!" Not because I don't like the charity, because I can't talk to you 365 days a year about giving to charities, and that's like charity overload. I'm like, I walk by here every day, for God's sake, stop asking me about your charity. And very early on with these people, I've stopped and chatted with them, and they're like, they have these forms they want you to fill out. Oh, you know, a monthly donation, any amount, blah, blah, blah. And I just, for whatever reason, the way my brain is wired, I don't want to do that. I don't want to like sign up this form, have a direct deposit from my bank account. I have been literally them like, I'll give you guys $20 right now, and they won't take it. because what they don't want your $20. They want your commitment of monthly funding. In the same way that's how almost all companies operate, whether it's cable providers or whether they want you to contract, right? They want to be able to forecast and fund, and I get that they do that, but for me as someone who might give, I don't want to do that. So, and I get a lot of this at my door too. Like a lot of people will come around canvas in the neighborhood, and there's two kinds. So I always give money when the people come to my door, and it's whatever I have around. If I have $10 or $5, I will give it, and they usually write you a little tax receipt. Doesn't matter what it is, but I figure it all adds up. And then so I give them money. But lately, there's been some people that come around and they have like an iPad or something, and they come up, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this thing for this charity," and I was like, "Okay," and I reach in my pocket, I'm like, "I got $15, I'll give you $15." And they'll be like, "Actually, no, all we're doing is here. You can sign up here. We're trying to sign people up, and then you can list on." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that." I'm like, "I will give you money right now for this thing," and they're like, "No, we won't take it."
Is that the first of your list of things that are weird?
Well, no,
you had a couple of things, and I want to address that one.
Well, no, but that's basically one of my main things is now they've all shifted to this like steady funding model, and I understand it. But like for me, as someone who I'm pretty much always, if someone is this a charity and someone's like, "Hey, you want to give?" and I'm like, I'll reach in my pocket what I have, I'll give to them probably. But they'll be like, "No, we don't want your $20. We want you to sign up and commit to a monthly amount for a year." And I'm like, I hate bureaucracy. I hate forms of any kind, and it just drives me away.
Yeah.
And the fact that they refuse my money, I find weird.
I bet they're working on commission too.
Who knows?
And I don't know how a lot of these charities operate, but some of them operate on the financial side where they actually take the money and invest it. And I think I don't know if I probably can share this. It's not really a big, I don't remember, but I was part of an organization at some point that was offering money to people for, it's for research essentially. And the way it was explained to me, because I didn't have any deep involvement, was that the money was actually invested. The money they had, was earning interest, was invested in various, investment products or whatever, and that a lot of what they did was use the interest to provide the bursaries to individuals. So it's like you can only imagine while some not-for-profits or charities are using you kind of think of it like, oh, if they get $10,000, then they use that $10,000. When really, if they get $10,000, they add it to their money pile and just, the money comes from another source. So, like, to me, the idea of getting your monthly amount like that is part of that idea of amassing a financial base. And it's the way a lot of business is working now, which is not that everyone wants the recurring payments. They don't want the one-time payments. They're not as valued anymore with all the way that
it just
money
annoys me on
works.
principle, because at that stage, if that's how they operate, they're just essentially capitalist organizations in the sense that what they have is a pile of capital, and then they use the profits of that capital through investment or whatever to do good work. And I'd be like, I wouldn't fault them for that, but I still feel like, I've railed a lot about capitalism and various topics on this show, but that whole paradigm is part of why we have so many problems in our society. So having charities that essentially operate, so like, okay, well now we have $200 million in the bank, and we just have it invested in oil stocks and, the military industrial complex, which is a giant place to invest money. And then we pull that money back out to do good work. I'd be like,
I'm not clear if charities themselves do this as part of like a legal requirement in various countries, but I know that not-for-profits do, and I can only imagine that some charities must. They must.
I'm sure that
I'm
sure that they do. I can think of
if
other
you
organizations.
have like 20 employees, 100 employees or more, like you can't run a business off of the idea, well, I hope we get enough to pay everybody from donations. Like, you're going to need a buffer in there. You're going to need a pool of cash that you're sitting on. The one difference is it doesn't go to stakeholders. It's just, it stays in the organization, presumably.
It is quite interesting, because if I think about the couple of recent people who've been at my door, one of them was this guy, and he did take the cash I had, and he was clearly a volunteer. He was an older guy, and he was a veteran of, I think, the Navy. Older guy, and he said that's what he's raising money for, veteran support stuff. So I don't know what I had, $10 or $15, and I was like, here you go. And he was just like, thanks, every bit helps. He's like, I just do this to get out of the house, and I'm like, oh, it's great.
It's a volunteer.
And then the other ones that wanted me to sign up, they were young people, and I just got the impression that it was kind of one of those jobs. And I've had friends who've worked where you get paid, you're a professional fundraiser, you get some, it might be minimum wage,
Yeah.
but you're being paid to fundraise, and then you have this kind of funny redundancy where a lot of the money that these charities, they're just paying people to go and make and raise money again. And you're like, is this really the most efficient use of this money? And I guess ultimately it is. But anyways, okay, I feel like I've been the big asshole this whole debate.
No, those are like, I mean, pet peeves are noted because those people tend to annoy me as well. And like when I was canvassing for the charitable campaign, part of it was encouraging multiple types of donations. But yeah, there was a big push to get people to contribute monthly capital. I also, if we're putting on pet peeves, the other thing is that people sometimes, I think, and this has less to do with charities and more has to do with people, but people sometimes donate money or time sometimes, but definitely money to feel good about themselves. And I mean, that's not bad. I would rather that if they feel better about themselves and that money is going to good use, then that's really a win-win. That's really a win-win. There's no problem. There's no problem there that I see. But it is kind of like one of these situations that I even catch myself doing. I'll give you an example. So there's a lot of homeless people on the street or whatever, and they're asking for money. So it's really easy to throw $1 or $2 or whatever to a homeless person. You think I'm giving direct to the source here, like this is where the money is needed, is this individual here, and I'm giving them the money directly. I'm taking out the middleman.
They're receiving your charity.
Pardon? Yeah, exactly. They are receiving my charity. I am the charitable organization. But the idea again is then I don't, and it's not that I want to run everybody's lives, but like you don't know what they're going to do with the money. You don't know what's brought them to that state in their lives, and you don't know if giving them a few bucks here is going to help them out as much as maybe access to organized facilities or coordinated efforts, right? And so now, like when I give my charity donation every year, you can break it down to who it goes to. I break it down. I always give to the mission and that because I've seen how they run stuff. But like I use that as justification to not give homeless people money when I walk by them. So I'm like, I feel good about my donation. So I don't need to give these guys on the street any money, and I don't feel bad about it. Because if I didn't give that donation, then I'd be walking by these people and I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't have any change. I'm sorry. And I, knowing myself, would feel bad about that. So I'm giving money. Yes, it's going to help, but it's also a salve on my own soul, if you will. So I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that you could begrudge charities as providing people that avenue.
You can begrudge the charities because
as providing them as like instead of me going out and helping or doing different things or like trying to change the world, I can be like, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, because other people are doing it in the way we organize the world.
I'm going to give these guys money. They're going to do it, and I'm going to feel good about myself.
So then you're going to walk around and be like, hey, man, UNICEF's down the street. So why are you bugging me on the street corner like for $1?
Speaking of UNICEF, did you guys do the orange boxes with Halloween?
Oh, yeah.
They pretty much force you to.
Do they? Sweet.
Yeah, when you're a kid, they liked it. But it's kind of like, whatever, it's cute.
I did there was the 48-hour famine or 24-hour famine? I remember I did that a few years.
That's also kind of dumb the more I think about it.
But you get money from people. Like people give you money.
But then you have a big pizza party in the end. It's so dumb. It's
really?
Like, hey, we don't eat to make us feel like people in Africa are starving. And then you're like, sweet pizza time at the end. We did it. High five, everyone.
Well,
and then like it just seems almost like an insult to do that.
I don't know. I think it's a complex question because it's more insulting to do nothing and to be dismissive than to even make ham-handed attempts to try and honor those people that have less than you.
All right, should we get into verdicts here? What do you guys think?
I think we're ready for verdicts. I feel like I could talk another hour about this though with you guys.
I just feel like going around in circles. I mean,
Yeah,
and,
Alright.
I sort of do too. I'm
Okay.
digging deep to find anything bad.
Well,
and it's
So I'm
mostly.
just-
I
I
feel
wasn't
like
seriously offering another hour. I just
Well, I would
yeah,
just say that
I'll go first when we're ready.
I would just say that I feel like we have focused mostly on trying to criticize charities, and I think the reason for that is because the good aspects of them are kind of self-evident. Like, I mean, if anyone listening to this is like, but what do charities do that are good? I'd be like, person, it's a charity. What they do is charitable stuff. Like, it's all kinds of things.
We're
I
talking
mean,
to
I think
imaginary
it's pretty
persons.
self-evident that they attempt to do good, and it's a very broad that we're charity. So trying to just make this into a discussion that's not just obviously good. So
let me bring the farm animals in.
Yeah.
The jury of animals.
That's what it sounds like when I read my son's stories. There's always animals in the stories, and I always do the sound effects.
I liked when we went to the experimental farm because I read a lot of animals stories to my daughter too, and we're like, look, enslaved animals. We enslave them because they're all tied up.
Well, were
It
you
is-
reading
it is
Animal
funny
Farm to her?
To read, no, he didn't read Animal Farm to her. She's not old enough for that yet. But there's
went to
animals
the-
in all kids' books.
Yeah, they are. And Mike and I went to, with our kids, to an experimental farm in Ottawa. Anyway, it's just, you look at the animals, but they're all tied up and look miserable. And you're like, look, this is a cow. It's tied up and can't go anywhere.
You know what children's book's really good is All My Friends Are Dead. That's a pretty good one. You should you
Sounds
should
like a
read-
bad one.
Okay, this
Okay.
verdict's off to a rocky start.
I'll go
Alright.
first. I said I'd go first. So I'll get things back on track. I'm going to say charities are good.
Bum.
Now, there was a couple of times during the conversation where I was like, maybe charities are bullshit. And when I thought that, I was like, I'm just being contrarian. Really, when you look at what charities are trying to do across the board, they are trying to make improvements in people's lives. And you can see that it could be, on an infomercial, in the news, whatever. Like, you could see it almost all over the place. There are lots of little annoyances. Mike pointed out fundraising is a big one, and I definitely hear him on that. And I find that though, when my experience doing fundraising, I saw a bunch of people who were, I started to realize, these people are assholes, and you get to know them better because they don't want to donate to charity. And I'm not saying that everybody who can afford to but chooses not to donate to charity is an asshole, but like the mental gymnastics. If somebody said, I just don't want to, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. But the gymnastics that they would go through to avoid donating to charity, like the things they would try and explain to me, it was like what we did on a lot of this show, is find ways to justify the fact that I just don't want to give money to somebody else. I would rather keep that money. And I generally enjoy giving money to other people as much as possible. I want to retain my lifestyle and that, and I'm lucky enough to be able to afford to. And if I was not in this position, I would be so appreciative of all the services that are offered. And just like, I forgot to mention it earlier, but like, we give to the Alzheimer's Society, and when my dad had Alzheimer's, we would use some of their services. So we would drop him off, and they could take care of him for a little bit, and caregivers could get a break and this sort of thing. So I mean, they were a charity, a health charity, and they provided services and filled a funding gap. And that's, I think, the only thing that I would really criticize, and it's something I would agree with both of you guys. Sometimes charities are picking up the slack for government, and that's never a great thing. I'm more of a Mike Hodgins socialist, share the wealth. I think charities are good.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go next. Yeah, coming back to the point of the fact that they exist is again just evidence that we have problems in our society. And I really wish that we could devote ourselves to fixing the problems at the root, which I don't think charities are able to address. And I am a big believer in taxation, and I kind of think that if governments did a better job with money, I really think taxation would be a better way to get more money towards the people who need help, and addressing the fundamental issues of it. But taxation has become such a dirty word. We can't even go there as a society yet. I just think it's sad. But coming back to charities and where I'm going to land on this, I want to say bullshit for a lot of reasons, but it is. I agree with Cross, and like the world is the way it is. There are people there who really care about doing good things. They're trying to do good things. Like, how can you say anything else but that charities are good? So I'm saying good for charities.
All right. Well, I guess I gotta put the cherry on the top, or the bow on this tuxedo. All right. I agree with both of you. I think the concept of being charitable is definitely a good thing. I think the idea that we set up organizations for charities are because we identify problems that affect us in our communities, or even on a global community scale. And we do live in a world that requires bureaucracy, and we've talked about bureaucracy before, and it's full of poop. But at its core, the mission statement for a charity is one of doing good in the short term and in the long term in a problem that's identified. I think people who earnestly work in charities are noble and are doing good in the world, and they're deserving of our thanks. I think that charities are, for the celebrity ones aside, because they barely count, the real charities are probably consistently underfunded and don't have enough money or resources to do the things they aim to do. And we talk about being miserly about giving our money. We have all kinds of excuses, but I think 99% of the time, whether it's a company or it's a person, they just don't want to give the money. They just do not. The problem doesn't affect them, or they don't, they just don't want to give it for various reasons that have nothing to do with the fact that charitable organizations are corrupt, or it's bullshit and they're cynical or whatever. So doing good in the world is a good thing, and I can't think of in spirit anything else from an organizational systemic thing that does good in the world like a charitable organization. So I'm going to say that charities are good.
I'm used to Bo trying to be as controversial as possible. I thought he was going to do something there. I'm glad that we stayed the course as a team.
Right. So you can donate to my charity, the Hive Mind Foundation, where we're doing research because the scientific community is not acting fast enough, and neither is the IT, to get shed these bodies, these mortal flesh mounds.
If you want to go see some educational videos about what Bo's proposing, there's some episodes involving the Borg in Star Trek, which will give you a good idea.
We all want to be beings of electricity living inside this pool of electricity where we can all be individuals, but be a hive mind.
Don't you speak for me. I'm happy with my meat body.
If you want to speak for yourself, you can email us at goodbadbull@gmail.com. Offer us some feedback. You can be the fourth musketeer. We will share your feedback and your email on the air. You can visit goodbadbull.com. That's our website with all the good stuff on it. All our archives of wonderful episodes are there. You can subscribe to the show over Stitcher, iTunes. You can like us on Facebook. We love your likes. You will be notified when there's a new episode. And Bo always puts a super flashy photo that always tickles my funny bone. Twitter.
This one might not so much.
We'll
Cherries.
see.
What's he gonna put?
I'm sure he's going to find. He always finds something good.
Oh, some of them are hard. Some of them are hard.
I know, but I know you won't let us down. And now the expectations are raised. Okay, and you can follow us on Twitter at GoodBadBull, and you'll figure out when a new episode hits the streets. So, guys, D'Artagnan, if our listeners want to hear what you have to say, where can they find that out?
They can find my tweets on Twitter at ML Hodgins.
All right. And Porthos, if people are looking for you, where can they find you? All right.
You can find me at Bo Schwartz. You can find me also, another announcement too, if you're in the Ottawa area, I'll be on CHUO next Wednesday. Actually, considering this episode releases next week, it's gonna be passed, so I can't announce it.
Oh, you
That's
blew
bullshit.
it, Bo.
But whatever. I was on the radio yesterday,
Sweet.
and the interview went great.
I'm
But
sure it did.
It's in part to promote a course that I'm giving at the Westboro Brainery on teaching a podcast. That's this Saturday, so you have like a couple days to register. Go to westborobrainery.ca. And look for the How to Start a Podcast and register and come hang out with me if you're in the Ottawa area. It's not an online course.
Sorry, people who don't live here.
I need more things to shill.
I know. I'm starting to I'm starting to become a shill master.
You're like a podcasting guru.
Did you say your thing in there? Should I now say, and you can follow me at Crofton Steers?
No, because no, you didn't. When I do it, I frequently forget too. So, but
well, you can follow me at Crofton Steers on Twitter.
Yeah, show your badass Twitter account.
Is Twitter a charity? I hear it makes no money.
I'm sure it makes a shit ton of
money. It makes a lot of money.
No, I thought it actually didn't really. I mean, it does
makes
sort of,
Justin
but
Bieber money.
They haven't figured out how, like, where's the revenue stream?
Ads.
Where?
Promoted tweets. They're like all over the place.
All right.
They're made to look like they're just part of your regular timeline.
You mean I've been fooled by Twitter?
Yes.
No. Yeah, there's that fundraising thing actually really hit home with me, Mike. I was thinking about when I work downtown too, and they come
they drive me nuts.
They come to your door and all this, and it's really. I remember our roommate back in college when he got a job working for, I think it was Greenpeace, when he came back, and I'm pretty sure he told me that his pay was relative to the amount he fundraised. Like he got like
doubt it. I mean, they want you to. I find it so obnoxious, and like to the point where when I see them on a street corner, I'm like, I'll cross the street to try to avoid them. And that's like, that's unfortunate for charities in general. I was also thinking of kind of the irony of the way everything works. Like, so say you want to contribute to an environmental charity, but then your government happens to support policies which lead to massive pollution, and you're just like, what's the point? What's the point of anything? Like, it's just like,
what's the point, everybody? Well, that should be your response.
Well, and like, say it's just like, say you give to like the Red Cross and it helps like people displaced by war, but then your government is involved in wars overseas which help displace those people, and you're just like, God damn it. It's like you're throwing money after bad, It's like some of your money go, like if you're an American citizen and you donate to like the Red Cross, which helps like the Syrian refugees, but arguably the US helped destabilize the whole area, you're like, but God damn it. It's all a big quandary.
That's why it's not enough just to, donate to your charity. You have to vote and you have to get involved with politics.
It'd be like giving money to the Cardinal Richelieu, played by Tim Curry.
I'd rather give my money to Cardinal Official.
Oh, Cardinal Official. He's
a rapper.
He's a bomb. He's so good.
I didn't even know who that was.
Really? I'm impressed. I knew who that was.
I'm impressed you did too.
He does this funny thing. I saw this video of him on YouTube where he was eating craft dinner because he's a Canadian guy. He's from Toronto, and he was eating these funny craft dinner concoctions, and it was just pretty funny because he'd be like, someone would present him a bowl, and one of them was like, it's craft dinner with Timbits in it, and he's like, I don't know about this, and then he eats it, and he's like, man, that's dope. He's like, this is dope. He thought most everything was dope. He was a pretty generous craft dinner. It was a very funny video. I was like, I like Cardinal Official. He's all right.
Cardinal Official. No,
Yeah,
not EL.
Cardinal
It's
Richelieu.
Official. Like,
He's of Jamaican ancestry, and he didn't even give because there was one that was craft dinner with Jamaican patty in it, and it didn't even win.
Wow.
Yeah, check it out on YouTube. Look, I'm plugging things all over the place.
After you're done marathoning ideas, check it out.
It's like Mike's the shill for CBC ideas, and Cardinal Official, hip hop and talk radio promoter extraordinaire.
They go hand in hand.
I need to shill more.
All right, I'll shill you. What?
I didn't even shill EXM. I could have done that.
I don't even know how to end this episode. I think it's done.
It's already
all right. Live stream.
You could have ended it after my Cardinal Richelieu joke. There, boom. I ended it for you.
I had something I was gonna jump in with, but it just didn't work out. All right, so I'm turning off the live stream. Bye. Thank you for watching. If you did watch.
Thanks, live streamers. Was anybody watching?